My name is Konrad Gniazdowski, and I would like to talk about the way we coordinated 3 teams, right? In a way that verged on scaling, but we didn't want to employ out-of-the-box scaling solutions, because that would be an overkill. In short, we did it due to the meeting structure that we employed, and we worked out together, and thanks to our culture of ownership and identity. So, what I'd like to talk to you about is the challenge that we had, like what motivated us towards taking the risk, why we didn't choose the out-of-the-box solutions, but what we took from them, right? So what inspiration we took from what we had, how we work, and of course the problems that we solve. So I hope that in this presentation you're going to see a reflection of some of your problems you may be facing with your teams. And maybe if not all, you can check and employ part of what we have. So the company is IPFD. It lends money, collects it at a profit, and then reminds people. And the teams were doing all of that. To give you a heads up, the state of Scrum, so everybody here involved knew what Scrum was. So it's worth noting that it would be much harder to conduct if the teams didn't know what's going on and or how it should work, at least, right? But at the same time, they hadn't had a Scrum Master for quite some time, right? So they reverted to the very comfortable form of Scrum, right? Where you take part of the things like dailies because they're fun, and you kind of ditch the other things like reviews, because who needs reviews if you can just take demos and make them occasionally, right? When it's comfortable. And the retros, they could be shorter, right? So that was the state that we started and saw the teams. And meet the teams. To the left, you've got the loan finance team, the thoughtful, slow, very, very safe team that did all the calculations, that was thinking about the core without specifying what the core was. So also nobody was really asking questions, so they needed time, they were thoughtful, and very, very, very important, right? To the right, you've got the collection processes team, a team that was made of dreamers, made of people who like to fail fast, who like to experiment, who like to check, and are not afraid to take risks, right? So joining those 2 teams, as you might expect, was a great challenge, and many people advised us against us, right? For me, that was like marrying Romeo and Juliet. But you really have to watch out not to have 6 dead bodies at the end. So let's have an inside view. With the loan finance, the financial team, it was a black box. Nobody asked, nobody checked. They didn't want to share with the rest of the company. They were slow, but it was also hard to measure, so nobody really knows. And inside the team, there were 2 smaller teams that were kind of in conflict with each other. So this was a learning that if you just divide people without making them one, it's not going to help coordinate, right? The other team had a great history of being a great team. And once you get this history, as you know, it's hard to admit that maybe it's changed over time, right? They were failing, sometimes fast, sometimes just failing. And as any Excel spreadsheet is going to tell you, if you've got a great performing team, if you just add more people and then more people and then more people into that team, right? It's just going to perform even better, right? So slowly, with time, this team was just getting huge. Okay, the problems that we had for different reasons were the sprint goals. And it's really hard to find a sprint goal if you've got a divided team. It's also hard if your team is so many multiple specialties, right? That really don't see the way they can work on one thing. There was the lack of attachment and tensions, and it's worth mentioning that the tensions were within the team, both in the divisions and in the size, but also between the teams, because the teams had a lot of interplay, and they were also presented to each other as kind of competitors, in a way, and that didn't help. And there was this overlap that nobody could really chart. So you couldn't say that this is their responsibility in the main and this is the other team's domain. And how to check it, nobody knew. We solved that. And the last one is lack of transparency, but you know that for sure. Okay, so we had to get in sync, right? And these rules, they're like four things that we really wanted to watch out for, were like part my ideas, part the product owner ideas, but part the ideas of the team members, right? So we both had a survey, but we also talked with each and every one of them, right, to see what worked in their setups, in the previous companies, in the past, what they would dream of, right? And this is what we came up. So with the shared goals to bring people together, the everything clear, everything in the open within the team and within the company, no meetings that aren't necessary, and connected by one identity. And this was the key point that my product owner was adamant about. And at the beginning, I really wasn't convinced that, you can do it, right? Or you should do it or have to do it. And now I'm really convinced that this is the heart. This is the thing that makes the team work. Like believing and knowing and representing each other and like keeping each other back as one. So, the change was there. Everybody was open for different reasons. We didn't take Nexus and less, right? With Nexus, that would be a clash with the identity thing, right? So if you just added the company structure, the BAs, everything, right? And Java devs and competence and tech leads, and then just added one more identity with like the Nexus team, that would just be an overkill, right? With less, it's a device to work in the whole company, and we got a free hand very locally, right? So we got the trust, but the trust wasn't enough to like change everything upside down. But we did take the ideas of working together in the mixed teams, and also the philosophical ideas of less, right? To do more with less. So fast forward to how we work now. We've got the 3 teams. And to the left, we took like Mars, Saturn, Jupiter for the sub-teams, and debt management for the main team. To the left, you pretty much can recognize the first financial team. So with the tech lead, they stayed anchored inside. To the right, you've got the Jupiter team, which stayed anchored as well in the collections domain. But the middle, the team that had like 50-50 composition, right? They just figured out what the clashing area was. So it turned out that if you just allow the teams, if you join the tasks and just allow them to choose whatever that's like they're good at, right, or whatever they want to work out with, you can organically see how the domains overlap and what the problem is. So it was just payments. Okay, the communication system. We have the Slack channel and we have the common channels to communicate so that everything is set in the open and everybody has access to everything. One for communication in general, one for code review. But then we used the user group. And that's a system, if you don't know, where you tag a certain user group in a chat. They get the ping and only they get the like, oh, hey, watch out message. But then everybody has access to that. They can see what kind of thing that is, what kind of occurrence appeared, and maybe they can contribute. You never know. And of course, we've got like Jira labels, because where would we be without project management software, right? With the teams, the communication was centered on the idea of ownership, independence, and the just talk focus. And the last one was really difficult to introduce because, well, those teams had a lot of distrust, a lot of history, right? Different ways of working at the beginning, right? So we worked that out. I'm going to tell you how in a minute. And then, of course, the multi-team events. So this is our week. And as you can see, it looks like any other ordinary week, apart from the fact that at the beginning of the week, we skip dailies in favor of a common joint session where we discuss everything that came, everything that transpired, all the problems. Sometimes we make last-minute estimations. Yes, we did have problems with a lot of last-minute estimations, but we solved that. And that's doable. And at the end of the week, you've got the trickster refinement that I'd like to tell you more about in a second. We also begin the trickster refinement, so that's like a breath in the middle of the sprint. And at the end, if you notice, there's a sprint review, and it's back. So the trickster refinement, which was core concept, and that's like the main accomplishment of like the entire team, I think. is a meeting that is and isn't there. So we block the time in the calendar, and we do everything, including our product owner, who's a very, very, very busy person, to not like overbook, to double book this time. So this is a time where anybody in the team can start a meeting and refine or discuss any kind of problems they're currently having, any kind of blockers, any kind of knowledge exchange gaps that just have to be patched up. And of course, like at the beginning, it was mostly me, the BA, and the product owner calling that in, but with time it's changed. The notable things that we have is that we always make sure that the representatives from all the 3 teams are present, right? And that we rotate them. So nobody's just like the person who goes, yeah? To that. And this is also the kind of meeting that collected the teams in various mixed settings and told them that they can actually talk and they're not that bad. And, you don't have the whole like 3 sub-teams in one room, right? So once you stop discussing one idea, then you just disconnect or reshuffle people, and then you start discussing the other idea, right, that you have. So nobody spends the full time there. So a bit of numbers. So if you look at the total numbers of hours booked in the calendar for both teams before the transition, that was 19 hours a sprint. And you look at the number of hours that now are booked, it may seem that we fail, right? But like one aspect is, of course, that it's easy not to have meetings if you don't have like sprint review. Yeah, you can lose a leg and lose a lot of weight at the same time. And that's always a good thing. But then my metric was that an average member of the development team now spends an hour less a sprint during those meetings, thanks to this like varying and changing nature, right? So that also means that the composition is much more suited to the problem that's being solved. So people aren't spending time on dead meetings when they aren't really needed. They don't really know, and there's somebody else who can just like go instead. And why are they there, right? So that happens less. I can't guarantee that it doesn't happen anymore because we know life, but it surely happens less. So yeah, the problems that we solved. It's easier to have sprint goals if you've got a smaller team, and the motivation also rises. With the ownership and trust, that was helped by the space for individual preference during the planning process, for example, right? Where the teams have the joint backlog, because we've got one backlog with things. And also with peer insight. So the fact that everything is in the open and everybody can code review everybody's code, right, and see how it's gone. And the communication is also present in one place. That helps us, the both team, to just start trusting each other and also like see that their standards aren't that different. And transparency, thanks to the communication system that I also mentioned. So my key takeaways from today are that the Trickster refinement is a cool idea that you might give a chance. Maybe in this form, maybe in a different way, whatever suits you. That the identity, that's stressing that we are one team, that helps each other, right? That we're having this message that we're not like 3 separated teams, but we're like one team and 3 sub-teams. That really helped people to support each other. And also the perspective, like, we devised the system just based of what people wanted, expected, experiences, and wanted. So probably if you just ask your teams, they're going to tell you the best solutions to your problems. And thanks. You can find me in the lobby and LinkedIn.
I think you may be sought after because there are quite a few very good questions, and it's really hard to select a couple. So I will start with the one that had the most upvotes. What is your opinion on following SAFe as a scaling solution?
Okay, so I don't have much experience with SAFe, obviously. And I think it was a solution that was built for much bigger purposes, right? It's really hard to... I would like to show my expert position here, because IPFD is a company with like 200 people. And Now we're going through a very intense period of checking out different words, different forms of collaboration. So I think we've got like 4 models. For me personally, that seems like this like Cambrian explosion. I don't know if you know evolution, but at some point of evolution, there was just like thousands and thousands of different various organisms in different shapes and sizes. And yeah, what we see today is just like the fragment.
All right, and one more. If you had all the freedom to pick a way of working, why did you choose Scrum as a main framework? Why not Shape Up or Fast or something created in-house?
Why we did that? I think that was like basing on the experience of people that they already had, because they still had the memory of Scrum working pretty well from the time they had the Scrum Master. And I think that Scrum with Scrum Master is just much more efficient, but also I'm not objective here being a Scrum Master myself, right? So we wanted to base on something known because that was still a leap into the unknown for them. And change is great, but like too much of a good thing is always dangerous.
All right, thank you so much.